Hey there, pen fans. Welcome to episode number 322 of Goulet Q&A, where fountain pens are still a thing. I'm Brian Goulet here at the Goulet Pens headquarters, and today I've got a few things to talk about with you. First thing is going to be why Italian pen makers don't really do starter pens so much. How to keep your dopamine flowing without spending $500 on a pen. What's really standard of these standard international cartridges and converters. Some budget-friendly standard international pens, and my favorite non-blue inks, as well as spotlighting the Delta Yellow Swallowtail fountain pen. Say that 10 times fast. Let's start it off with some feedback. All right, first one, we got Mass Sheldon here says, thank you for showing how to remove a nib and feed. Really helpful. Well, I'm glad you like that. I'm always torn with like the tinkering side of things because there are definitely some manufacturers that don't really want you to do that so much. But as long as y'all understand, you're kind of taking your pen's life into your own hands when you start taking it apart and swapping pieces around, then it's totally fine. I support you, having fun and going nuts and doing whatever you can. They're your pens, so you do whatever you want. And then Ancient Novelist has a good comment here. Get ready. This is a long one. Okay. Ancient Novelist says, it's not surprising that Dr. Bronner's soap would be effective against the encrusted gunk freezing in a TWSBI pen. Dr. Bronner's contains mostly saponified vegetable oils, which are anionic surfactants. Anionic surfactants are far more effective against particulate matter than the surfactants found in dishwashing detergent, which are mostly non-ionic surfactants. Non-ionics are very effective against grease and oil, which are found in high concentration in many of the foods that we eat. I've long recommended a dilute solution of ivory soap, the bar soap, not the liquid ivory, in tap water as the most effective way to remove encrusted ink residues from fountain pens. Just shave off 1 gram of solids from a bar of ivory soap and dissolve it into 1 pint of tap water. It will take quite a while to dissolve unless you shake or stir it with ultrasound. But for something like the stock TWSBI plunger, you could increase the concentration to 4 grams of ivory bar per, pint of water. I'd be willing to place a small wager that ivory bar soap will outperform Bronner's in most cases, but both soaps are going to be effective. Well, you know more about this than I do, apparently. I've never heard of that. I do remember seeing a science experiment one time where somebody put ivory soap into the microwave, and it does some really interesting things. I forget the science behind it, but just the way that they make ivory soap or whatever it is, it poofs up and it looks crazy. It's sort of like if you put a marshmallow in the microwave, how it kind of blows up like that. Very interesting. So there you go. You can try some ivory soap. Or, we use pen flush, which is, I guess, kind of a different thing than the ivory soap thing. But yeah, good to know. You know more about chemistry than I do, which doesn't say much. All right, let's talk about some new stuff. Okay, first new stuff thing that I have to talk about. I'm actually going to be talking about this towards the end, so I'll touch on it. We have a new Delta pen. This is an exclusive Delta that we have at Goulet Pens called the Delta Butterfly Yellow Swallowtail. It's a mouthful. It's a special edition that we have. I'm going to talk about it more, but it's a really beautiful pen. It's sort of like the size of a Spaccanapoli, or actually I think it might be the size of a Dolce Vita DV oversize. So pretty good size pen, and it writes really well. And it's pretty affordable for what it is, $252. So I'll talk about that more, but basically it's a continuation of our Butterfly series. We already had one earlier, and we may or may not have more in migration. Anyway, we'll talk about that more later. We have some new Platinum Preppy WAs. These are the modern Mach-E WAs. They're a little more expensive than regular Preppies, but they're $13. That's not too bad. These are in fine nib only, but they have very interesting designs on them. They have 6 different designs, all kind of themed with nature and stuff. So it looks really, really cool. If you don't know Platinum Preppies, they work really well. They're great starter pens. They seal up really well, and these look nicer than just, a clear plastic pen. So, might be worth, it's like a silk screen printed, Mach-E. It's not like hand painted Yurshi for that price, but it does look pretty nice. So go check those out. Lamy also came out with a new Safari, it's a variation of a Safari, I guess. So they have, it's called the Safari Multicolor. So they have it in all black and white, which is, the the same concept on both pens. It's just, do you want black or white? So what they did is they, put together this pen, but rather than having a fixed trim ring in the middle, they have replaceable trim rings. And they've come out with like a variety of colors that all match previous special edition Safaris that they've done. So it just gives you a way to kind of like mix up your pen, make it a little more personal. You can change the color around if you want. Maybe you can kind of change it depending on what ink color you have in it. So it's kind of just an interesting little take. It's nothing mind-blowingly revolutionary in terms of like a whole new pen or anything like that, but it just makes it fun. So it's just like it just costs a little bit more than a regular Safari. It's like a few bucks more, but kind of makes it fun. So they have an extra fine, fine and medium steel nibs, and then it comes with a Lamy cartridge, just like they always do. So kind of interesting. So let me know what you think of those. We also have a new pen on the horizon. It's not here yet, but the Kaweco Lilliput Colibri. This is a limited edition. It's up there in price, $170, but it's a rainbow PVD. So if you like the fire blue that they've done before, it's kind of like that concept, except it's just way brighter, and it's pretty cool. So it's a stainless steel body, so it'll be heavier, slightly heavier than a normal one. Normally the Lilliputs are aluminum, but the stainless steel is just a little more weight to it. But the PVD plating looks just wild. It's very vibrant. So I haven't seen it in person yet, but the pictures that we were given of it looks kind of crazy. So I don't know how long they're going to be available. They're calling them limited production. I have no idea how many that means. So I would definitely move this one up higher on your list. It's a tiny little pen, but it's going to look look grand, I guess. So move that up on your list if you are interested in it. And then we got a whole bunch of ink that's coming. So Diamine Black Edition. These are full-size bottles. So everything that came from the Inkvent calendar from last year. So I don't know if they offered all the colors. I don't think we're carrying all of the colors, but we're definitely carrying a lot of the most popular ones. Vibe, Sleigh Ride, Cosmic Glow, Good Tidings, Chilly Nights. I'll just name them all. Wishing Tree, Mint Twist, Icy Lilac, Snow Globe, and Cranberry. So there's a whole bunch of those. They're 50 ml bottles, that cool shape of bottle that they do for their Inkvent inks. And then we also have Colorvent bottles. So Colorverse came out with their own variation on an Inkvent. With the Colorvent, they are going to be having full-size bottles as well. So these are going to be individual bottles. We have 3 of their top colors: Milky Way, Pulsar Pulse, and Christmas Star. And then there's going to be a set as well that has smaller bottles. And also has some washi tape in there, I believe, as a gift set. So that's pretty fun. And then not anything, seasonal or special, but we have Sheaffer ink. So we've been carrying Sheaffer pens for a little bit. We went ahead and pulled the trigger on the ink. So we have one ink that is new, is the coffee scented ink. And legitimately, it kind of smells like Kahlua a little bit, or Bailey's or something like that. It definitely smells like coffee, but it smells like coffee with a little something extra. But it's a good smell. And I will say it's like probably the strongest coffee smell I've ever smelled in an ink. And including like when you put it on paper, like it actually smells for a while. So I haven't done any like strict testing to see like if I close it up in an envelope for 4 days, will it still smell? I guess I could do that test, but it lingers. It's got a pretty decent smell, and it doesn't smell super chemically either. So that's kind of interesting. But we have 9 new shades of Sheaffer ink. They have some decent colors. Sheaffer turquoise is pretty nice. Their purple is really good too. Sheaffer red has kind of been known as like, the good like teacher correction red, if that's not too triggering for most of you. But yeah, Sheaffer's got some decent inks. $12 a bottle for 50 ml, so it's not bad. Anyway, that's what we got for new products, and those a lot of new things. But you can check those out on our new arrivals page, and maybe some coming soon if we haven't gotten in that Kaweco yet. Okay, let's move on to company updates. I don't have a ton to update here, but I did want to let you know that we got a video. So I mentioned before I had a turquoise ink showdown. And if you watch that, after I shot the turquoise, I was like, well, I'm going to have to try teal because it's so close. We actually have the turquoise and teal merged together in the filter on our site. So I was like, I really want to get to teal. So I just went ahead and did it. So we got the teal ink video out this week. So you can go check that one out. I will say the variation in colors of teal was greater than the turquoise. Turquoise ended up being like 8 of them were like the same shade of blue, which was interesting. But the teal one, there's a little more variety. But I did find that like there's basically like a red sheen on all of them. Now, I was on Tomoe River. But anyway, you can check out more details on that one if you want to go see what I did there. And that's pretty much it for the company updates. Let's get right into the questions then. All right, first question from Marcus M359 says, do you have any insights as to why Italian pens don't really tend to have starter pens like Japanese and German brands? I don't know that I have like specific insight, a perspective, I guess. I haven't been like given secret knowledge on all that kind of stuff, but I mean, you can just look at the starter pens. Most of them are going to be, platinum. They're going to be Lamy, Pilot, and stuff like that. Jinhel maybe, so it's like, you really don't see an Italian. In fact, I looked at the site and I was like, what is the least expensive Italian pen that we have? And it's the Delta Spaccanapoli, which is, I think we have one on sale right now for $115, but they're normally like $132 and up. So it's like, yeah, that's the least expensive Italian pen that we currently have. Now, I don't know all the Italian brands out there. It's very possible there are some Italian, more starter pens there, but I think the it's kind of a multifold answer. So it's a couple different things. So I think starter pens, to be able to get pens at a really low price, you have to produce them in high quantity. So it's all about economies of scale, standardization, high quantity, high production, and then distribution as well. So you have to be very consistent, very industrious. And those Germans and Japanese are definitely known for that. Not that the Italians aren't, especially like in the northern part of the country, but they're just not mass produced. It's like when you think of it, most Italian brands in most things, fashion, cars, whatever it may be, you're not thinking like, stamping them out mass production. You're usually thinking like more handmade, more bespoke, more, themed and artistic and design oriented as opposed to like mass production. So I think maybe there's some cultural aspect to that. There's probably some macroeconomic things going on there as far as like whether regulations or tax laws or various things like that probably influence that to a degree. And then some of that just kind of spills over into the fountain pen world. So there's no reason that any Italian company couldn't mass produce some pens, but I just don't think that it's a lot of their motives. There are other countries that do that really well, that are kind of set up for that. It's just not really how most of the Italian companies have kind of turned out. Most of them were, handmade stuff. But essentially, basically anything handmade is going to be expensive. Let's see here. What else did I have in my notes here? Oh, the one thing I have like sort of heard, I guess, is, and again, I'm not an expert on this at all, but when talking to some of our Italian manufacturers, they're pretty small. They're pretty small. Delta, Visconti, like they're small. Montegrappa is probably the biggest, I think, in terms of like number of people they have, but it's really a lot smaller than all of them are a lot smaller than you would think. A lot of that has to do with, I think they said that like if you have more than 15 employees in Italy, there's all kinds of labor laws and stuff that get very expensive, very burdensome from a cost perspective. And so if companies do that, if companies, grow and expand and stuff like that, and 15 people is not that many people. So if you expand to that point, all of your costs go up and you have to start selling stuff that is, either more expensive or you have to like super mass produce. And it's just, this is not something that most of these companies have done. So, it's interesting. I think, honestly, they're design oriented, they're artistic, they're good with themes. So I don't think necessarily we need to see mass produced pens coming out of Italy. I say they just kind of stick with what they know best. And then, the other, companies the other countries that are set up with companies that are more mass produced, they're the ones that are going to pump out more of the starter pens, and they're going to do a great job there. So that's why we like to have a variety of brands, because you get a little bit of everything from different brands. That maybe just gives you a little bit of insights into some of that. This is from Meow Rasilal. I'm mispronouncing this name like crazy. This one came from Instagram. Meow Rice Lal, I guess. How can I keep that dopamine rush of a pen unboxing without spending $500? Well, I don't know, base jumping, marathon running. There's lots of ways to get dopamine. I'm trying to stick to like legal methods here. But no, I mean, I get what you're saying. I'm kind of joking here. So yes, I get the nature of your question, especially it's like, how many $500 pens can one reasonably afford and get? It is pretty exciting when you can get something that is out of the ordinary. But at the same time, like, fountain pens themselves just kind of inherently are more of a specialty kind of luxury item, right? So there's a little bit of that kind of treat yourself thing. So there's a law of diminishing returns with anything. I think the more you spend on a pen, the more exciting it can be, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that you have to spend that much to get excited. So there are some things I think you can do to maybe keep some of the excitement up that may not be exactly the same as buying a $500 pen, but might kind of close. One of them, you may not like some of these answers though. And I probably shouldn't tell you some of these because I'm trying to sell pens, right? That's my job. But no, I genuinely want you guys to enjoy the hobby, like long-term enjoy the hobby. So one of the suggestions I actually have is make a limit on your purchases. Either put like a time limit, either like a freeze of like, okay, I'm only buying a pen every whatever period makes sense for you, every 30 days, every 60, 90 days, whatever it is. And I'm going to really build up that anticipation and make sure I get the thing I really want. And then I'm going to be super excited to get that new pen. By doing it less often, that's a way to make it more exciting because it feels so much more special because you're denying yourself basically. It's not good for me as a pen seller, but you never know. You never know. You may appreciate different things about your pens after you are forced to wait. I think that could be good. I think another way that you could do it is maybe set a certain number of days or weeks or whatever. If you don't want to limit like the number that you buy or how often, you can put a time limit on for that specific pen. So if you're like, ooh, I really like that pen, and I would buy it right now, but I've said that I'm going to wait a week or 2 weeks after I decided I want a pen to buy it. And it's like, it might feel like torture to do that. But then when you do get it, it's going to be so much more gratifying, right? So I think just that a little bit of that self-control, a little bit of that self-denial could actually help your dopamine rush without not only not costing you more money, but it actually might cost you less money. Another thing, this is like kind of more on the extreme end, but don't buy any pens. Just put a buying freeze until you can build up some anticipation, or maybe you set some kind of goal for yourself of like you get to a certain, birthday, holiday, some other goal that you're trying to achieve, tie your pen purchase to achieving some other type of goal in your life. And then the pen is more exciting because of the additional like meaningfulness that you've attached to it, because it's kind of a reward for doing something else that you were trying to do. That could be an interesting take. And then, this could either coincide with any aspect of this buying freeze, is that you could focus on ink instead. Sometimes when we get new and exciting things, it's just the fact that it's something new and exciting that kind of gives some of that dopamine rush, right? And it might only be like 80% of the rush that you get on a $500 pen, but a $20 or $30 bottle of ink can be pretty dang exciting. Or heck, if you get a bunch of ink samples, that can be exciting because, it's the experience of trying something new. If you get a new ink, if you already have a bunch of pens, you can ink it up in different pens and you get kind of a new experience each time you use it in a different pen. So that can be a really affordable way and very sustainable way to enjoy the hobby, keep the excitement up. Sometimes when you use a new ink in different pens, you may find that the dryness or wetness of it pairs really well with some pens and not others. So you may actually have some pens that you are kind of like cool on right now, that you use it with a new ink, and all of a sudden that pen feels a lot better to you now. I've definitely had that experience myself, or been like, I haven't used this thing in a while, and I pair it up, with a new ink or new paper or something like that. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I like this pen a whole lot more when I have the right combination of stuff that I'm using it with. So that could be kind of cool. You can definitely get some of that dopamine rush just from like the satisfaction of like reviving an old pen. Lots of interesting things. If y'all have other suggestions, please let them, comment on it, because I think it's great for us to share our experiences with each other. But also, ultimately, it's not really about how much money you spend. It's just how much you enjoy the hobby. There's lots of different ways to do it. I think like with any hobby, any type of collectible thing, we all kind of rise and fall. It ebbs and flows. You get really passionate about something. It kind of wanes a little bit. That happens to all of us. Believe me, I'm a serial hobbyist for sure. And there's times where I will pick up and put down hobbies of mine. Not fountain pens, of course. I'm always hot on fountain pens. But no, I mean, it's like, it's okay to give yourself a little space. Sometimes taking a break can be good. And then you kind of rediscover that passion. There's lots of different ways to do it. But anyway, hope that's something that you can benefit from. The next question we have is from Marianne Hummel 103. Are standard international cartridges and converters really standard? If they aren't, are they close enough to fit in most pens without an inktastrophy? Nice. Thanks. Okay. So I find that the cartridges tend to be pretty standard. So I'll split out cartridges and I'll split out converters because the answer is kind of different for both. Standard international cartridges, if they're not all coming from the same factory, they're definitely coming from similar factories. I've been told in the industry that many ink cartridges out there are all coming from Slovenia. That's like the place where a lot of them are made. I don't know if that's everybody, but it would kind of make sense. Like they make up their ink wherever, but the place that actually like does all the machining and does all the like injecting and sealing and all that kind of stuff is maybe standard as one place. So that's a thing. It would make sense. Like if there's not that many companies actually making these cartridges, then yeah, it would make sense that they're kind of standard. Now there's two different ones. There's short standard and then there's long standard. And there are a few variants out there. I mean, TWSBI designed their cartridges. They're much bigger for their swipe. Those are bigger, but the still standard international fitting. The whole standard international thing, honestly, is more about the opening here. It's more about the end and about fitting on the back of that feed post. It's a little bit less about like the overall size of the cartridge, though you do have the short and the long here. But there's, maybe some other variants. I've seen some from like different Chinese manufacturers that look different, but the end is more or less the same fitting. I haven't really heard of like disasters with ink cartridges. Inktastrophes, as you named it. I haven't really heard of inktastrophes kind of from any of these things other than like, oh, it like just won't fit in it and you can't really use it. It's not really a catastrophe. It's just like, well, it just is not compatible. So that's more with the cartridges. I'm sorry, the converters. So here we go. Take a look at these converters. These are all standard international. And I have even more of them. I just wanted to get a sampling of them. The most standard international you'll probably see looks like this one. I believe this is mostly made by Schmidt, and it's the Schmidt K5. That's sort of like the premium standard international with like the metal shroud here on the end, and it's got the whole piston and all this stuff. So this is kind of like your standard international. Lots of companies use these or variants of them. Sometimes they'll have their logo printed on them or whatever, but this is a very common kind of standard one. Now there's all kinds of other ones. This is a kind of the similar one, but it's threaded. So the Delta that I'm actually going to show you today has a threaded one. So certain manufacturers will have threading in there. That's honestly, it's even more like a premium feature because then when you go to fill it, you don't have to worry about your grip of your pen falling off the converter, which is kind of nice. But then there's some other ones. Several of these are like come on various Jinhao pens that I've gotten. So they're going to be kind of all over the place. But really all of them should. To be standard international, really, it's about the end. And it's about the end that's going to fit on there. So while you may have some slightly different shapes, and certainly the converter overall is going to be a different size, the ends are all basically going to fit the same way. I've never had any true disasters of anything that's called standard international that like just doesn't work on other pens, at least at the where it attaches to the back of the feed. Where I have seen more of an issue has to do with how it fits inside the pen. And I looked through my collection, I tried to find ones that like weren't very compatible or whatever. And I kind of failed on that front. I didn't really get you a good example because I wanted to show like, oh, see, there's certain pens where it can fit in this one, but not that one. I definitely have some, but I just couldn't think of it off the top of my head. And I kind of ran out of time to pull some. But yeah, there's all kinds of variations here. A lot of times what you end up dealing with in terms of compatibility with these converters is you have two issues. You have length and then you have like diameter. Usually it has to do with diameter of the end of the converter. Because if you think about it, when you have a pen, they manufacture the pen. If it's going to be a standard international, pretty much the end that the converter fits onto is going to be fairly fixed, right? Like it's going to be it's going to be very standard. But then you have the whole body end of the pen. So you have all kinds of different things. You have, depending on the type of material, you have different thicknesses, depending on the style of the pen, how much it tapers, all these things. These are all factors in whether a converter is going to fit or not inside the body of a given pen. So that's usually what ends up tripping us up. And this is something that we test for every new pen that we get in. It's got Standard International. We've got like an array of converters that we'll use, particularly this standard like Schmidt K5. Then we are putting that in, testing it. We're putting in the short and the long cartridges, testing the fit for those. Not just will they plug in and actually attach, but will they fit inside the body? So we'll take and we'll put this thing on here. This is a good example. This is a Schaefer VFM expressions, which Schaefer normally uses their own proprietary converters, but on the VFM, it's Standard International. And I look at it and I'm like, oh, that's a pretty long converter for this body. Like, I don't know if that's going to fit all the way in there. But, I do. It's like, it gets a little tight there with the threading right over this part here, this shroud, but it screws on there and it fits. And I'm like, boy, that must be tight in there, but it works. So that's really cool. But just out of curiosity, because I'm going to take this one because I don't know, this seems a little fatter to me. So this one came off a Jinhao of some kind. And oh yeah, see, look at that. That doesn't fit. It has to do with the diameter of the shroud. Because of how thin this is and the threading on here, I can't actually slide it onto here. I mean, I could probably force it, but I don't want to do that. So this would be a good example of like, oh, well, it's Standard International, but it's not going to fit this pen, which is Standard International. So this is part of what drives us and what drives you so crazy is because it's like, it's called Standard International, but it's clearly not all exactly the same. It's just a standard in terms of the end and how it's fitting on there. So there's still a little bit of testing that needs to be done. If you're like me, you've probably gathered up a whole bunch of different converters like this. And so sometimes you might have to swap them around and try different ones to see which will fit. But at least when we are, taking new pens, putting them on our site, we're testing for various fittings like this. And we will say whether it, will fit or not, or if it's, if there's like some variation of a converter, if it's like a shorter, thinner one, kind of like this, and that's what comes with the pen, but it won't fit, one of these other ones that we know, like a lot of people have these laying around, then we'll put like something in the product description that says like, fits the converter that comes with it, but not a regular Standard International converter. So something to that degree. But yeah, so the long and short answer, is that, it's standard, but not, and it's all kind of all over the place. And just like everything else with fountain pens, just like nib grinds, just like ink flow, there's some guidance and some standardization, but the deeper you dig into it, the more nuanced it gets. So yeah, that's part of what keeps this hobby so interesting, right? Okay. Hopefully that was helpful for you. Let's move on to the next question. All right, got another question from Instagram. This is from Fractal de Coq. What are some of your favorite budget-friendly fountain pens that accept Standard International cartridges? These are great questions, and I realized I wanted to turn on my overhead camera and already turned it off. So here we go. It's back on. Okay, so what does budget-friendly mean? Especially these days, prices, tariffs, all these things. So I set $50. I know it seems like a lot, but I set $50 as my limit. The thing that I realized as I was going through everything that we have on our site, and there's probably other pens out there. It's just, this is the ones that I know of that we work with on a regular basis. A lot of them are not Standard International. A lot of the most like known budget pens, you got your Platinum Preppy, you've got your Pilot Metropolitan, your Lamy Safari, your the Jinhaos actually do work. I'm going to talk about those. It wasn't the Jinhaos. There's something else I was going to say. I don't know. But either way, TWSBIs, there's like a whole bunch of pens that aren't Standard International cartridge converter. So my list is going to be somewhat limited, but there's a lot of good pens, starter pens, but ones that are Standard International are somewhat more limited. But I'll mention some of my favorites and some that I think they're good starter pens. First off would be the Jinhao Sharks.
and also other Jinhao pens, the X470, the 750, the X159. The Shark is going to be the lightest, the least expensive, comes with a cheap converter, which, these are great pens for kids, for somebody just starting out, if you want to hand them out to people. They're a little goofy because of the heavy theming, but they're not bad pens, honestly. For $5 or whatever they are, it's you're not getting off to a bad start. And they are standard international as well. So I think that that's pretty decent. And then the other Jinhaos, those are all metal pens. They're pretty durable. The nibs are decent. The prices are not too bad. You're looking at like the $10, $15 range. You can't really complain too much for pens in that price range. So I think that's a decent one. You're not going to blow anybody's mind with the design or quality of those, but they are fun and they are pretty inexpensive. Next one I have is a Diplomat Magnum. So my favorite one is the Prismatic Purple. That's our exclusive one, but there's other really good colors too. So these are plastic pens, but they have like this metallic kind of effect on them. So they look pretty nice, but they're very light. They're relatively thin, which you may or may not love. They're definitely on the thinner side for me, so it's not necessarily my go-to them always grabbing, but I don't know. They're a lot of people like them because of that reason. They're a little thinner. They have it's not a fully triangular grip, but they've got some indentations right here where it does assist in your grip. So especially as a starter pen, that can be really good for some people. And then the nib itself has a little bit of a bounce to it. I don't have this one inked up, but maybe I can at least kind of show you that there's a little bit of, I'm not going to call it flexibility because then people think they can do copperplate calligraphy with it and it's going to look amazing. But normally steel nibs like this are really, really stiff, but this one's got a little bit of a bounce to it. So relatively affordable pen. It's got a nice ink window, comes with a converter. It's really decent for a package of around $30. So I like this pen and I would strongly recommend it. Next one I have up is a Sheaffer VFM, which I've already mentioned in this video. But I don't know, this one's cool. They've got some cool colors. Since we brought the VFM back, it's been received pretty well. I want to say years ago, before we picked this back up, this was before we, before we carried Sheaffer for a number of years, and then we didn't for a while, and then they changed ownership and all these things. But I want to say previously, if my memory serves me correctly, it used to be cartridge only. It didn't used to fit a converter. So we did carry them. It was a decent pen, but not as many people bought them, I think, because they didn't take a converter. I could be mistaken about that. But either way, that doesn't matter. This was years ago. They have them now and they take converters. And they come with a converter, which is pretty good too. So you're looking $30, $35 for one of these, which is honestly pretty good. So another very solid pen. Similar in overall size to the Diplomat Magnum, but these are going to be metal, so they're going to be slightly heavier. Not super, super heavy metal. The metal itself is relatively thin. I believe it's brass. You can sort of see in there and see the brass color. Pretty durable. Works well. Color's really nice. They got this spray finish on it that looks really good. This ombre color. They've got a few different colors that are great. They have a coffee edition, which is really fun. So these are good. Fine and medium nibs. They both write really well. Yeah. So I think that one's really good. And then last one I had to recommend is the Kaweco. So they have a Perkeo, not the most popular, but they are good pens. But the one they're probably most known for is the Sport pen. It's very distinctive. It's got that, it's a pocket pen, so that can be kind of fun. If you wanted a full-size converter that could fit in it, standard international, that's where you would get the Perkeo, because that will fit a converter. This one, you can only use the Kaweco little foldable mini converter, so it's kind of this thing, but it's honestly, it holds not as much ink as a cartridge even. So it's honestly, I would just rather use an ink syringe and refill a cartridge, but it's nice to have this as an option, right? Or you can just eyedropper convert the inside of this thing. Now, maybe not all starter users are going to want to do that, but I don't know. When I first got into fountain pens, this is before we sold fountain pens. This was one of the first pens that I bought. Not this exact one, but this was one of the first pens that I bought because you could eyedropper convert it. You don't even necessarily need an O-ring. You can just throw a little silicone grease on these threads because the threads are so tight and they're so fine. A little bit of silicone grease on there and you can eyedropper convert it. Now, are you going to eyedropper convert it and carry it around in your pocket all day? Well, that depends on how dangerously you like to live. But they got several different colors. Some of the colors they've got out now are really pretty decent. They've done more like limited production, special edition kind of things. The cyan, the Toyama teal, the sage, those are all nice. But there's no converter included with these. So, that's just something to take into consideration. But yeah, so those are some decent standard international starter pens that I think are worth mentioning. Again, if you have any others that you want to mention and kind of share with the rest of the group, by all means, leave a note in the comments and you can all benefit from your sage wisdom. All right, let's go to the next one. All right, PMB1311 from Instagram says, knowing blue is your color, what is your favorite non-blue ink? Well, I came up with a couple of them, but they're very blue adjacent. So I gave 3 because I was like, let me have a clear non-blue. None of these will probably be a surprise. In fact, I believe all of these are in my ink sample package favorite for a reason. We actually just redid some of our ink sample package sets. Part of it was like we used to have like 8 inks in a lot of these and we pared it down to like maybe 5. We're trying to make some of those package sets like a little more affordable. So we pared some of them down. I pared down what used to be my list of 8, now it's 5. So, but all 3 of these that I'm going to recommend are in my 5 of my current favorites. So the first one is Diamine Marine. I love this color. It's a turquoise, leaning teal, I guess. It's definitely got a blue component to it, but it's got a lot of green in there as well. Again, this is very blue adjacent, but what I love about it the most, the color is great, but also the shading is fantastic. It's just a very non-fancy ink. It's just smooth flowing, writes well, great shading, pleasant color. Nothing too fancy, but it's been ever since I inked it up, I was like, I really like this. It hits my eyes right, and it's really never left my favorites. It's been up there. It's one of the few inks I've gone through an entire bottle of it, and that's an 80 ml diamine bottle too, which is a lot. So my next one is Jacques Herbin Emerald of Chivor. It's probably to no one's surprise. That is a much darker teal. It's got some shimmer. It's got some red sheen in it. So that one is a little more wacky, a little more fun. But again, that's another one that's like, ever since they came out with that ink, I was like, oh yeah, I like this a lot. That's like been my go-to dark teal. And so there's that one too. But again, if you want me to completely get away from blues or anything with blue in it, then I would say Diamine Red Dragon is going to be up there next for me. I do like some deep reds. That one's like not the super deepest red. It's not like a Diamine Writer's Blood or something like that, or like an Ox Blood. Those are nice colors, but this one is a little more vibrant red, which I like. I especially like to use that when I'm writing with finer nibs in some of my notebooks because, it's a little bolder color and I can read it back really well. Not so much on the shading front, but it's just like the color is nice and it stands out really well when I'm trying to read it back. So those are some of my favorite colors. I have lots of others, of course, but I was trying to like keep it contained a little bit and just talk about maybe some of the ones that I like and why I like them. Mostly it's just like the no fuss inks. The Emerald of Chivor is the one that has the most fuss because it's the shimmer and the sheen, all that kind of stuff, but still really well behaved. In the world of shimmer inks, that one is not like the heaviest shimmer out there. So it's not going to like completely dominate your writing. There's just like hints of shimmer that will show up in there sometimes. And then when it comes time to clean it out of your pen, it's going to do a better job too. It's not going to, the less particulate you have in there, the better it's going to be. So yeah, those are fun. So that's it for my questions. Let's go ahead and do a pen spotlight on this Delta Butterfly Yellow Swallowtail. All right. Delta Butterfly Yellow Swallowtail. Delta Butterfly Yellow Swallowtail. Okay, here we go. Nice box, right? That's the butterfly. That's what we're talking about. This one right here, this one is a female, if you didn't know. I did a little Wikipedia research to prepare for this video. So it is Papilio glaucus, just in case you were wondering. They're native to the northeastern U.S., all the way up to Canada. The males are black and yellow. The females can either be this kind of black, yellow, and blue, or something else, just like a plain black, maybe black and yellow. I don't know. I didn't remember all the pictures, but either way, some of the variants here are the females with this blue, which is relevant because the pen has just a hint of blue in it. The packaging is really nice. It's a nice size box. Not super heavy, but it's like very sturdy. And it says, from the collaboration between Delta and the Goulet Pen Company. So this is an exclusive that we have with Delta. So we're super grateful to be able to do that with them. You slide the sleeve off, and then the box looks really nice. It's like a nice texture to it. Pretty good size. Like, I've got pretty big hands, and it's like substantial. Well protected. You know, you kind of slide off this top lid here like this, and it's got a nice debossing right here as well. And then the thing that I noticed as I was flipping it open is you flip it up, and then it's like the logo is opposite, right? So if I just flipped it over like this, it would look upside down. But it's like they know that I want to flip it open like that and put the thing down. And it's like, there's Delta. Boom. I just appreciate, you know, packaging, branding like that. They get a little sleeve in here for the butterfly. It talks a little bit about the pen, some of the features and stuff like that. So yeah, pretty neat. And then it's got the pen, and it's got a bottle of yellow ink, which I'm going to ink up for you today, and we're going to write with it. But yeah, the pen itself overall, it's a nice size. So let's see here. It says, engraving here, it says Delta Italy, and then it says Butterfly Yellow Swallowtail right there. Normally Delta would like do the numbers. They would have some kind of number, not like a limited edition out of anything, but it would have like a running number. They didn't do that for these. I think because there's just like already so much engraving there. They just didn't want to have like the whole pen just be engraving. So that's one thing that they did not do. And then let's see, I was going to compare it to some other pens that I had, some other Deltas. Give me 1 second. Let's see here. I got some other Deltas. These are, of course, like more special Deltas, but like the Italian Songs one, it's pretty similar to that one. And this is the Napoli, which is a little bit different too, but it's kind of similar in size. This one's a lot heavier though, because it's got a lot more metal parts. But as you can see, like it looks really nice. Like with the rest of these Delta, I gotta say, they have been putting out some really nice looking stuff lately. And then, you know, the quality's been really good. But yeah, nice size pen. I don't think it's the oversized pen. In fact, I should probably go grab one of those. Give me 1 hot second. All right, I grabbed a couple different ones. This is like the mid-size, which is still pretty large. Here's a blue mid-size that we've done. This is another exclusive we had a while ago. This is the other butterfly, the Flora. It was really nice. Different style, but overall design is going to be the same. It's got your butterfly on the top there. And then this one is an oversized. So it's not quite as big as the oversized. It's got a number 8 nib on it. That should have been my giveaway right there. That's not it. So this has got a number 6 nib on it. So you can tell there it's just a different size than the oversized. But still, the overall design, everything is not drastically different. It's just the oversized one has a huge nib. But this pen was also a lot more money. I think it was like 2 or 3 times the price of this. So anyway, that's what's going on there. Just for some size comparison. I don't know. Let me see what else I can show you that it compares to. Got like a Lamy. This is an All-Star Dark Dusk. Pretty standard pen, I think, that a lot of people recognize. So it gives you some sense of just the scope of this thing. So about the length of an All-Star, maybe a tiny bit shorter, but it's going to be wider. Nib is going to be bigger. Yeah, the grip is going to be substantially bigger. I forget the exact dimensions on it. We've got the dimensions on our site though. But it's a pretty hardy grip. Not a super heavy pen though. You know, it's mostly resin. So that is really nice. It's going to be comfortable for most people. So I think this is one pen that if you like really large pens that are not too heavy, these Deltas are great for that. Spockanopolis are good. These butterfly ones are really good for that. But yeah, you can see the color there. You got the black, you've got the yellow, kind of this quartz-like resin in here. And then you've got the little hints of blue, right? Like you have on the female wings. There's a nice center band here that has a strip of yellow and a strip of blue in there. Looks pretty classy. And then the pen itself is a standard international cartridge converter. And this one does have the threaded converter, which is kind of nice, you know, so it just keeps it on there very securely as you're going to fill it. You don't have to worry about the thing plopping down into the ink, which is nice. Yeah, you can post it on the back. It gets to be a little long, but honestly, I mean, my hand's bigger, but it's not uncomfortable. It's not like the thing is so back weighted. Like the cap itself is pretty light. Again, it's mostly resin. There's not like a metal sleeve or anything in there. Seals up nicely. So yeah, I was going to say if I was going to write with this posted, I could definitely pull that off. It wouldn't be like weird or uncomfortable for me. So yeah, let's grab our piece of paper. I'm just going to use the provided converter. It's got some nice Delta, logoing on the converter as well. And then we're going to ink this up. Now it comes with yellow ink. Is that for everybody? No. Yellow is our least popular ink color of all the colors, which is why we don't have a ton of yellows. But I don't know. We're going to see. I don't even think we don't even stock Delta ink regularly. And I'm trying to think if we do. We definitely don't stock the yellow. So yeah, looks kind of nice. Let's check it out. Let's see what this yellow ink looks like. I'll cap it so I don't knock it over, make a big old mess. Would want an inktastrophy to happen. Okay, so this is a fine nib, I believe. Which, it says it on the side there. There you go. I believe these are Yovo made nibs, which they've been putting the stamps over on the side there. There you go. Oh, okay, so it's a yellow, but it's kind of an orangey yellow, which is good. That's like the usable yellow color ink that you can get. If it's too sunshine yellow, then it gets impossible to read. Okay, so we go Delta. It's definitely light. What is the name of this butterfly? Yellow Swallowtail. So many loops and swirls. Okay. There, that looks pretty nice, actually. Yeah, the nib is good. It's got the nib is smooth. It's got a bit of feedback to it. So it's not like glassy smooth. Not scratchy by any means, but it's got just a little bit of drag to it. So as I'm writing, it like feels like it's got a very definitive, like, it's like a car that's got good brakes, which is kind of nice. I like that. That is one complaint for if nibs get too smooth. Some people are like, I feel like I'm going to slide right off the page. This one feels very, very grounded. Yeah, very nice. I like it. So there you go. And it's got the, when I slapped it down, I got a little bit of ink on the page there. Boop. Okay. And then the cool thing, I forgot to point this out earlier, but it's got a butterfly engraving on the nib as well, which is pretty nice. Now, it's not the exact same butterfly, if you notice. It's not the same one that's on here, but that's okay. They're trying to show a couple different butterflies. I'm pretty sure they've standardized that on the different pens, but it's all good. There you go. And that is our Butterfly Yellow Swallowtail. Check it out now. We have them available at Goulet Pens for the time being, until we don't. That's it for pen stuff. Now we get to talk about the nonsense. Well, first off, my just had something happen. Like, as of filming, this was like a couple hours ago. Just found out that my son passed his learner's permit test. So I guess I now have a child that can drive a car. So that's pretty crazy. Because especially if you all have followed us for a while, like literally I shot my first YouTube video for Goulet Pens 10 days before he was born. So Joseph has always been like a gauge for us for like the life of the business, like the life of Goulet Pens. And now that's kind of crazy that he's going to be driving with us in the car, of course. I know different states have different laws, and I have no idea how it works in different countries, but we're in Virginia, and in Virginia, when you're 15 and a half, you can apply for your learner's permit. And then you have to have your learner's permit for at least 9 months and get 75 hours of driving with your parents. And, you have to sign all the stuff before you can get your license. So yeah, that's going to be crazy. I was thinking like, oh my gosh, like school. So school is also starting up this week. And I was like, oh man, like I need to get him some training, because obviously he hasn't driven anything yet, because he just got his permit. But once I take him to a few empty parking lots and have him, tap the brakes and, understand how all that stuff works, I was like, man, he's going to be able to drive us to school. Like, I won't be necessarily driving my kids to school. He'll be driving, and then he'll get his license. He'll actually be driving, and then Ellie will be driving. I'm like, oh my gosh, this era of driving my kids to school is now over. That's crazy to me. So anyway, you're getting a very fresh look at my existential crisis of my kids aging. He's ready though. He's such a responsible kid. We actually had to kind of push him to get his permit because he was like, it's so much responsibility. He's like, I could really hurt somebody or hurt myself in this car. And I'm like, yes, you could. Don't forget that. That's really important. But also like, don't live in fear. Like, it's okay. Like, other people do it. You're a responsible kid. So he has just the right attitude. He has just the right level of responsibility for it. So I think he's going to be just fine. So that's been happening. My kids are starting school this week. They are now in 8th and 10th grade. And I'm like, I distinctly remember both of these grades myself. And now my kids are in these grades. It's like, that's wild. That's just wild. I'm having such a blast with my kids at this age. Knock on everything. My kids have had a very smooth transition into their teenage years, due, I think, in part to the fact that Rachel and I are being like very attentive to them. Because I think, it's not uncommon for teenagers to maybe get some rebellious or get some things or whatever. And that can get stressful. And of course it depends on phase of life and what's going on in your life. But like for us, at least, we've been really trying to be intentional with them, support them, talk with them, talk through, all kinds of stuff like politics, stuff going on in the world, business, whatever. Because like, I don't want to treat them like kids. They're like young adults and they need to kind of know what's going on in their world. So I don't know. I think we're seeing some fruits from that, just from years and years and years of investing time with them and treating them, like the young adults that they're becoming. So yeah, that's just crazy though. So, I've also been I've been cycling every morning. It's been great. I've had a nice little routine over the summer. But now that the kids are going to be in school, it's like my whole schedule is going to shift an hour earlier. And it's like, oh man, am I going to get up an hour earlier and go bike ride every morning? It's like, I could, I really should, but I need to get to bed earlier. So we're going to see if I keep that up. Last week I mentioned that we were going to have a mental health half day. I mentioned my intention of, doing some tractor stuff for a friend of mine. And, I did that tractor stuff. It took a lot longer than I thought it would. But I was having a blast. They, benefited a lot from the help. So I ended up grinding 5 of their stumps, which were pretty large. And so that took a couple hours. And then they have a gravel driveway that was like a 1/4 mile long. And I used a box blade with these scarifier teeth and stuff in there. So just what happens with gravel driveways, if you don't have one, what happens is it just packs down over time. And all the biggest stones, because of gravity and just them getting packed, all the biggest stones go down into the earth, and then you end up with the really small stuff. And then grass starts to grow in between and stuff like that. But if you have a tractor with these, this box blade is basically a box with a blade in it. It's not that complicated, but it has these big teeth that you dig into the ground. It's not quite like you're tilling because it's not rotating or anything, but it's just giant metal teeth that you're dragging through gravel. So yes, it's hard to do, but tractor makes it easy. But what it does is it grabs all those bigger stones and pulls them all up to the surface. So what it does essentially is it makes it as if your driveway was just freshly dumped with gravel, except, because all the dirt and other stuff is going to go fall down into it, and then as it rains and you drive over it, it packs down. And then all your stones, it's basically just revitalizing your whole, your whole driveway without having to buy new stone. So, that's something I want to do for my friend. I knew, I was like, they've got 4 kids and stuff like that. And I was just like, you know what? I want to do this for you guys. Mental health wise, I just love doing physical labor. The weather was beautiful. Get to help out a friend and their family. And it's like they have a whole new driveway. So they're thrilled. I had a great time. So that was really fun. And then last thing, I'm keeping up with my drum lessons, working on double bass pedal. Boy, I tell you, the upper thigh muscles, that, connect your hip, basically to your upper thigh. Those are killing me. because that's all you're doing with the double bass stuff. So that has been that's been good. It's been hard, but I've been practicing it a lot. So the song that I'm practicing right now that I'm really enjoying because it's good for double bass, but it's not too hard, is a song by Killswitch Engage called "The End of Heartache." It's a nice hard rock song if you're into that kind of stuff, but it's really good for a double bass. And then I'm doing this 30-day drum lesson challenge thing on limb independence on Drumeo. So I have a Drumeo membership, and I there's this YouTuber, TikToker guy that I follow. If you know anything about drums, you've definitely seen this guy. He's a Spanish guy with a huge beard. His name is El Estepario Sibirano, and he's a phenomenal drummer, just crazy. I actually discovered him when he barely had a following. This was like early COVID days. And I saw his drumming and I was like, oh, this guy's going to blow up. Like, he's phenomenal. And he has since blown up. But he did a lesson with Drumeo. And so I'm doing that lesson now. And I'm like, oh, this is kind of fun. So that's been cool. So yeah, that's been my world. So what kind of stuff have y'all been up to? Just let me know in the comments. I like to read that stuff every now and then. And that's pretty much it. I got to wrap up and then a fun fact for you at the end here. So, just want to thank you all for watching. Please leave me some feedback, ask me more questions down in the comments, and I'll keep, pulling those for future episodes. Let me know what you want to see and we'll just keep on doing this thing. 322 episodes in, why not? Let's just keep going. You can check out gouletpens.com for all your fountain pen ink and paper needs, of course, and, subscribe, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, all those things. We're all over the place. My fun fact for today is totally out of the blue, but I just have a spreadsheet where I keep fun facts. And I was like, you know what? I have totally dropped the ball on these the last couple of weeks. So I'm going to hit you up with two of them that are related. It's about dogs, and specifically about how dogs smell. So first off is dogs smell in 3D. So dogs can smell separately with each nostril. It's not like humans where it's all connected. They can smell separately with each nostril, just like our eyes see two different things and then compile our view of our world, like our brain kind of like unscrambles the two different things. That's how dogs' sense of smell works with their two different things. So a dog's brain uses the different odor profiles from each nostril to determine exactly where these smelly objects are located. Isn't that crazy? So like they get kind of like a 3D sense of where smells are located and where they might be coming from. And then in addition to that, dogs can smell the passage of time. So dogs can detect very, very tiny reductions in the concentrations of odor molecules that occur even over short periods of time. So this is what allows tracking dogs to quickly determine which direction that a person or animal has gone by sniffing the ground. They can like their brains will like calculate their own movement and the smells that they're picking up as they're walking. And as they're getting closer to something, they can sense the difference in the amount of time since that odor has been left. Isn't that crazy? I think I also read this. I didn't have this in my fact, but I think I read that like a dog's sense of smell is something like 10,000 times greater than a human's. It's just crazy. So that was pretty fascinating. Just thought that was interesting. I don't have a dog, but if I did, it would be smelling a lot of things probably. Anyway, that's it for this week. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see y'all next week. Right on.